guess we're on. So good afternoon, New Bern. My name is Catherine Adolph. I've been asked to facilitate interviews of New Bern candidates running for alderman positions in our 2022 municipal elections. 3 of the 6 aldermanic wards in New Bern are contested races. They are wards 1, 2, and 6. We've already had the interviews today for wards 2 and 6. The other today's we will be talking with candidates on the ballot to be alderman in the first ward, and those 3 candidates are Sabrina Bengal, Rick Prill, and Bernard White. All the candidates in Ward 1 are with us for today's show. I'd like to thank each of you who are running. Campaigns take money, time, dedication, and to serve the citizens. Being a public servant in an elected position is not easy, but fundamental to the smooth operation of our democracy. I thank each of you for running and wish you all well. With that said, let's proceed. I will ask the same question to each candidate for their response. We'll rotate amongst the candidates who goes first, and then the next person will go first. There will be a time limit to each question. So I would ask each candidate to respect the time restraints. Wendy Card, managing business owner and editor of New Bern Now, will keep us on track with time. So let's get started. We are going to start in alphabetical order. So we will start with Ms. Bengal. You have 3 minutes to tell us about yourself and why you want to represent citizens of the First Ward as their alderman.
Good afternoon and thank you. My name is Sabrina Bengal. I am the current sitting alderman for Ward 1. I have already served 2 terms, albeit not consecutive terms, one in 2009 for 4 years, and then I came back into office in 2017. I born and raised in New York, metropolitan New York, 25 miles northeast of Manhattan. Went to school at East Carolina, married a native New Bernian, and moved to New Bern in 1980, and I've lived here ever since. I have been very, very active in the community. I've been active in our state and in our region, and I've served as chairman of many boards, including the East Carolina University Alumni Association, the Board of Visitors. I've served as the vice chairman of the UNC TV Board of Trustees, and I've also served as the vice chairman of the North Carolina State Travel and Tourism Board of my jobs outside of New Bern. So my bio is long. I've been active and engaged. Why I want to represent this ward, because I know it inside and out. The dynamics of it are challenging because the neighborhoods are all very different with unique needs and wants. And I feel that I'm the best candidate to take care of those needs because I do understand. I understand the history of this city. I understand where we've been, and I do have the vision to see where we need to go. It may take longer than we would all like, but I have always been passionate about what I've done. I've worked very hard at what I've done, and I believe I'm the best candidate because of my experience and my leadership. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Same question to Mr. Prill. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to represent citizens of the First Ward as their alderman.
Sure. My name is Rick Prill, and I chose to jump into the alderman race primarily to give the voters of Ward 1 a choice. At the time that I made the decision to file my candidacy, I was unaware that Mr. White had actually also filed just the day before. I felt it was important that we have or that we at least offer the residents of Ward 1 a choice of candidates, and as it turned out, they now have a choice of three candidates, which is it's a very good thing. It's unfortunate that we have other wards in the city that are being unchallenged, but nothing that I can do about that. My background, I come out of 30 years being a city manager in communities in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. During that time, besides being a city manager and having the responsibility of managing the day-to-day operations of the municipal organization, I also wore a number of other hats, which is not unusual when you're working in smaller communities. I've been a municipal clerk, a zoning officer, a code enforcement officer, emergency management director, recycling coordinator, as well as a few others that I don't recall at this point. But I've got an excellent background in operations in local government. I understand local government. I know what local government is about and what it's supposed to do. So I felt that background would be a great choice to offer to the residents of Ward 1. My wife and I relocated from Pennsylvania to New Bern in 2015. When we were looking at areas to relocate to, New Bern checked off many of the boxes on the list of what we were looking for. And we have thoroughly enjoyed our time here and anticipate many years of enjoying everything that New Bern has to offer. So with that, certainly ask the residents and voters of Ward 1 to consider myself as a viable candidate for the alderman position. And we will see what happens in a couple of weeks.
Thank you. Same question to Mr. White. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to represent citizens of the First Ward to be their alderman.
Thank you. My name is Bernard White, born and raised in the city of New Bern. At an early age, I didn't know about being an alderman, but I told somebody that one day I was going to be over the city. And the person I told that was a person that was standing by Chief Worsham. Chief Worsham was the old police chief. He was a nice person, I thought, and I still think if he's still alive, I think he still is. I went to Shaw University. I left Shaw University. I went to Craven. I got married. I took up certain skills. One of them was business. I graduated air conditioning, refrigeration, and electrical installation. I worked at Cherry Point for 32 years, retired from there. Everywhere I've been, even in the military, I've never stayed on the same level. I've always was getting higher and higher. I've always been in charge everywhere I went. Didn't ask for it, but I've always wound up being in charge. I have 4 kids. They've all graduated of high school and college. And the thing about that, they're not living here. So I always want my kids to live here, but they say the same thing all the other kids say about opportunities. My wife, she's an educated lady. She has a lot of degrees. She doesn't talk about it. She has a master's. She doesn't talk about it. We're not bragging people, but some of the things that I'm seeing in New Bern and some of the things I wanted done in New Bern when I was smaller, it didn't work. But as I got a little older, I had a chance to work with some civil rights leaders and community leaders. And I've been working in the community for 55 years. I coached, like I said, the kids for 45 years. I've been through semi-pro teams, school. I have choices to go other places to work. Even had an opportunity to get a job and live in Philadelphia. Well, I did not want to go nowhere. I'm gonna stay right here in New Bern. I had made up my mind that I was gonna stay here and nothing else happened. But other than that, I just had the same idea that Mr. Rick said, and it was about people running unopposed. I don't think nobody should run unopposed. Even if I was still in there, if I spent a year unopposed, the next year I'll be looking for another position, another level to go a little higher. But other than that, that's about all. Most people know what I talk about, and I have a bio, but I didn't ever show it, bring it up. They tell you all the organizations, everything that I was over, Recreation Advisory Committee.
And our time is up. So if you want to conclude that statement, Mr. White.
No, that's good.
Okay, good.
Deal with it.
All right, we'll go on to our second question, and we will start with Mr. Prill. What is the most important role of the alderman? What is the most important role of being an alderman here?
Well, first and foremost, the alderman, is responsible and needs to be held accountable for being the representative for the district, the ward that they've been elected in. Their primary responsibility is to act as a representative and a conduit for the residents of the ward, to communicate information and ideas from the residents to the governing body, as well as from the governing body back down to disseminate into the community. The alderman also has a secondary role, which is just as important, in the role of being a decision maker and establishing policy that affects residents of the entire community. The aldermen have to not only consider the impacts of that policy on their respective ward, but also the impacts on the entire community. And it's a challenge, but it's a responsibility that each and every alderman has, and they need to fulfill that responsibility.
Thank you. Mr. White, same question. What is the most important role that an alderman serves?
My terminology, or the way I feel about it, an alderman has a responsibility. His responsibility is to be able to work with the rest of the aldermen or the rest of the people up there, and then he have the obligation to his ward, and he or she should try to do whatever they can for their ward, but not leave the rest of the city out. You have things that the city has to have done, so that's what you should focus on. And while you're focusing on that, you can still help do other things. You're not, you need to work together, but you don't need to act as if you're the head person of it. You can work with other aldermen or whatever it is, they can work with you.
Thank you. Ms. Bengal, same question, 2 minutes. What's the most important role that an alderman serves?
Well, our charter states that our primary responsibility is to be the policy-making body of the city of New Bern, and those policies are then carried out by our city manager and staff. But I think what we do is that we are the advocate. When there is an issue in the city with the citizens come to us, and we become the advocate of the citizen to the city staff. And we take that issue before the manager, the city staff, and we advocate on behalf of the citizen. After resolution with the staff, then our role changes and we become the advocate for the staff and the manager back to the citizen based on whatever the result of the decision is. So we are kind of in the middle, advocating on both sides. The end result is that we get resolution in most cases, not always. We try to get resolution. And if we can't get resolution, that's when we go into a policy making mode where we try to amend policy, create policy, change policy in order to solve the issues that have come before us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Third question, and we have 3 minutes for this question. We'll start with Mr. White. What are the top 3 issues of importance facing Ward 1 in your view?
Ward 1 is one of the most important wards in the city of New Bern. And the reason I say that because they have their demographics and things they do down there are entirely different from what everybody else does in the city. A lot of people in the city, they go to the downtown area. It's people come from almost everywhere, every ward in New Bern go downtown. And so when they go down there, they're looking for certain things, or they go down there to relax, to go to the restaurants and eat, and that's very important. But the other thing is about it's the people that come down there. When they come down there to relax, and we should be able to make sure they're accommodated with that. And then I say accommodated, mean they shouldn't have to change anything. They come downtown to relax. And that's the reason that we have those parks down there. Other people come downtown to just socialize. So they have a lot of things. So to keep downtown up, it has to stay abreast on what's going on. And as a new person dealing with them now, I would have to be on attend their meetings to know exactly what their foresight is. I need to know what their foresight is, because I wouldn't be one of those to try to push mine on them. You know, so when some of those people were involved in the war that I was in, that's how we worked it out.
Thank you. Ms. Bengal, same question. What are the top 3 issues of importance facing Ward 1 in your view?
As I've said many times, Ward 1 is very diverse. It's got different neighborhoods with different needs. So if I had to look at the 3 priorities I would have in this next term, one would be working with the Housing Authority and the future of Trent Court and the Walt Bellamy neighborhood is extremely important. We lost 108 units there. The buildings have still not been torn down. It's essential that we create community in that neighborhood and that we create housing that is to today's living standards. What's there currently is not to today's living standards. So that's an important issue in there. Infrastructure throughout Ward 1. Now, I will say this, I have part of currently the 5 Points area, going down Queen, going down Broad, the left-hand side. But there's many issues on the right-hand side, Duffy Field, which is now mostly in the 2nd and 5th Ward. It was before in the 1st Ward. But the choice neighborhood plan that we did is probably the second most important thing we need to focus on and get behind and work with the redevelopment commission so we could start implementing that plan. Again, the infrastructure in these neighborhoods are unacceptable. We need to work towards sidewalks and streets and housing issues and dilapidated housing. And then the third issue I would continue to work with, it's important, is our resiliency. Resiliency is very important to the residents of Ward 1 because it's surrounded by water. And so we have water, the Neuse River and the Trent River bounds the downtown area. And we saw the havoc that it created in a 500-year flood. So I think it's important that we work on that. It is a diverse neighborhood. I mean, we have failing sewer systems and water systems that need to be looked at, old infrastructure. But are there other issues? Yes. We're hearing and seeing about issues in our downtown business district, in our residential historic district, in Riverside. But I think housing and the upgrading of housing, more affordable housing, working in our minority neighborhoods that have been neglected for so long. It's time to do something there. A resiliency plan, and then continuing to bring economic development would be the goals that I would set for myself. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Same question, Mr. Prill. What are the top 3 issues of importance to you facing Ward 1?
I would agree with Alderman Bengal. As a result of the experience that the city had with Hurricane Florence, the ongoing discussion and dialogue and preparation of the resiliency plan it is of importance. It's one of those issues that it's past us. There's still a memory of it, but that memory continues to fade, and that can be dangerous because we know that at some point in the future it could happen again. And so it's important that the planning effort that is underway now and actions that are being taken to address those areas that can be addressed to prepare for the next time that it happens, that is a very important issue, and we cannot let it kind of fade away. A second issue that has gotten a lot of attention recently, and which has been, at least for the time being, kind of put on hold, is the issue of the social district. And there has been a good amount, a fair amount of concern being expressed by residents in and around the proposed district, and as well as by some members in the business community. And the committee that was formed that has been proposing this have, I think, wisely taken a step back and are going to be looking at the concerns and the questions that have been raised and trying to research it further in the hopes that they can come up with answers, come up with some solutions, and potentially reintroduce that issue at a future date. The third area of importance, I think, for Ward 1 is just the amount of proposed development that has been proposed recently with the Kessler Group, and finding out whether or not the Kessler Group is going to be moving forward with any of that proposed development. I mean, specifically the work that's being done on the Elks building, whether or not they are going to proceed with their plans to develop that property. The vacant lot that the city owns, which is pretty much known as the Talbot lot.
Time is
I'm sorry.
Your time is coming to a close, so you'll need to.
Okay. Yeah. So I think in general, the level of proposed development that might be taking place in the downtown business community, as well as 5 Points and the impact that that'll have on the district.
Thank you. In all the responses that each of you have given to the top 3 issues facing Ward 1, no one has mentioned increasing public spaces, not private spaces, not business spaces, but public spaces and green spaces. Clearly, we have in our small village limited opportunities, and they are continuing to diminish as development continues. What thoughts do you have about as a governing elected official to build more public spaces where all people can enjoy the downtown? We'll start again with Mr. White for a minute response.
When you start talking about public spacing, a green space, I have no problem with that. I always thought New Bern was going to be moving out. We can't continue to do so much in the city of New Bern without taken away from other people. And so in order for us to grow, we have to move out. And if we move out with those green spaces, we have more room for people to enjoy themselves and feel free. But here's the catch. Every time they build some apartments or build some I call them apartments. Every time they build those in the book for the Recreation Advisory book, it stated that anytime you build so many apartments or so many houses in that area, there's supposed to be some green space around them. And I've always asked that question: is there going to be any green space? Mostly I said recreational area, and that's for people who have children, family people who can't at that time bring their kids all the way to the areas that we have without leaving their facility, when they can stay right in the same area. If it's just a certain amount of yards, that's why it's supposed to be 50 by something space for them. And I picked that up from Mr. Avery when he was the person that was in charge of that. So I just don't see how we just keep building and you don't have places set up for women, husbands to take their smaller kids out or push them out of school and take them out there and let them enjoy themselves and watch them. We'll come up with a dog park. Dog parks are getting green space. We should be watching out for our children.
Thank you. Ms. Bengal, again, how do you see the first ward expanding or not? Public spaces, not business spaces, green spaces for the public to enjoy, because we have very little public green space in Ward 1.
Well, currently throughout the city, there are 27 parks throughout our city.
Right.
And a lot of them are underutilized, unknown, or unutilized. So maybe one of the things we need to do better is better market and help people to understand where our parks are. Some are a pocket park, some a little bit large. I guess you could call the Bellamy Park a pocket park. I'm not sure, but it's a beautiful park. It's a beautiful green space. But they take maintenance, upkeep, and I know that's an issue. So I think every time I'm sure Parks and Recs hear that we want another green space, they kind of hold their breath a bit, because it's a lot to keep them up and make them look good, because we don't want to just have green spaces to have green spaces. We want spaces that are well maintained and kept up. Also, we also have the 30-foot right of way at the river's edge, all the way from Lawson Creek Park all the way around through. It stops pretty much at the end of Broad Street and the little pocket park there. And then we're hopeful that it is continuing right now at Queens Point. There's a 30-foot right of way there, which is public space. And we hope it's going to continue down into Riverside with the other developments. As each development is planned and permitted, the city at the water's edge is asking for a 30-foot public right of way as a partnership with the developers, because we think it's so important. That's what we did along the waterfront where the DoubleTree is. I think it's important. I believe that public green spaces are important for gathering. I believe we can upgrade, though, some of what we have. That's why we did Martin Marietta. I've been very, very impressed at Martin Marietta, how beautiful it is out there. The families out there walking and hiking, the playground that's out there. Of course, we have Kidsville. Again, these are some of them are underutilized, and I think it's because we don't do a good enough job in marketing them. So, and the Duffy Field Canal is next in the books. Hopefully, we will have a walking trail and a green space along that with the redevelopment of that area. Thank you.
And to you, Mr. Prill, same question. Public spaces, and we're talking specifically about Ward 1. Not
Sure.
We're talking about this ward where lots of people and tourists come. Public spaces and green space for people to enjoy our downtown, or Ward 1, not just downtown.
Sure. Well, as I had mentioned earlier, In the immediate downtown area, you do have the property owned by the city, which is identified or kind of known as a Talbot lot. That lot has been vacant for a number of years. I know the city has previously engaged the services of consultants to help the city try to identify and determine what the best future use of the property might be. And certainly, one of the potential uses would be to develop that as a park property, not just leave it the way it is as open space, but actually make improvements of it as a park. Ultimately, a final decision needs to be made as to whether or not that being a park property is the best use, or whether or not developing it might be a better use. Again, it's a decision that ultimately needs to be made. There are other opportunities. I mean, the area along the river by the traffic circle, part of that is owned by the Shriners organization. Part of that is owned by the city. I know that there have been previous studies and plans made to improve that area as more of a formal park, but no action has been taken on that, but it's certainly an opportunity. Ultimately, in that same area, you have the Shriners Temple property. Not something that the city can take an active role in right now, but I think certainly stay in contact with the Shriners organization, and when decisions are being made as to what the future of that property is going to end up being, there may be an opportunity to carve out a small piece that could just be open space, if not potentially maybe a little pocket park. I agree with Mr. White that
We're going to have to wrap the session.
That every opportunity should be taken, that as property, not just in Ward 1, but throughout the city, that as property is being developed, whether or not there is an opportunity to develop some open space and park property in conjunction with the proposed.
I'm going to interrupt because our time is fleeting. I'm going to move on to another question. We'll start with Ms. Bengal. Ward 1 has some of the most wealthy as well as some of the poorest citizens in our community. How do you intend to represent diverse needs of Ward 1 equitably?
I feel I've done a really good job at that as we've worked, because I've kind of felt that coming into this new term, the residents of Ward 1, as it was prior to this last year, were not equitably treated, and that there was very little attention paid to the Duffy Field area that was part of Ward 1. I pushed for and was able to get a redevelopment commission so we could start working on this choice neighborhood initiative, because it is so important to the 5 Points, Duffy Field, and Walt Bellamy, Trent Court neighborhoods. So I believe that time and attention and partnerships are important. The other areas, as we talk about the wealthy areas of town, I think the concern there has been the flooding, our downtown historic district. I think that's been a concern we're trying to address. Is that equitable? I don't know. I feel that if it's your issue, it's important to you and you want to hear it and you want it to be solved. But then as the alderman, I do have to weigh things. And as long as we've got conversation and we can talk about it, I tend to go to the issue that really needs the attention. And at this point, it has been the 5 Points, Duffy Field, Walt Bellamy, Trent Court area. I mean, we are 3 years post-Florence, and we have dilapidated buildings that were damaged because of a flood still standing. And unfortunately, the city of New Bern does not own that property. The best we can do is stand at the doorstep of the housing authority, but I could tell you every meeting I am standing at that doorstep and working. It's been a level of frustration that it's been unbelievable. But that to me is the importance, is looking at this part of Ward 1 and really working towards bringing it up to being at least as good as the other neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. Prill. Ward 1 has some of the most wealthy as well as some of the poorest citizens in our city. How do you intend to represent the diverse needs of Ward 1 equitably?
Well, first and foremost, the role of local government is to provide basic quality of life services to all residents of the community. So if I'm fortunate enough to become the new Ward 1 Alderman, one of my primary goals is to ensure that these quality of life services are being provided equally amongst all residents. Now, again, not just of Ward 1, but throughout the entire community. And given the diversity of the socioeconomic neighborhoods in Ward 1, that's an ideal place to do a thorough review to make sure that the services that are being provided by the city are being received equally amongst all groups. And I think one means that might be a viable way to make sure that's happening. And just a thought that because of the diversity of the neighborhoods and the communities in Ward 1, I think it would be valuable to reach out to acknowledged leaders in these communities and invite them to participate as a member of what I'm referring to as like a residents council. It'd be an informal group that could meet regularly and have an opportunity to identify issues and concerns of the respective neighborhoods and communities, and where these things can be discussed, where items can then be communicated up to the mayor and board of aldermen and to the city staff, and to act as a liaison between these individuals and their respective communities to make sure, that everybody is receiving the same level of service by the city.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. White. Ward 1 has some of the most wealthy as well as some of the poorest citizens in our city. How do you intend to represent the diverse needs of Ward 1 equitably?
Well, if I'm elected, I will do the best I can to make sure that the parts that was considered poor, or the poorest part of that community, would be up to par. And I would do that the best way I could. And I think while we're talking about housing, I mean, we talk about housing, but what the community need is what they were doing in the 70s. It was bringing jobs. We need to bring jobs and quality jobs so that the people who live in those houses wouldn't complain that much about the rent or even living in the house. They would be able to pay or either buy them a house. You know, that's two things that I think about. And the other thing is that we have a community that's been almost the same as far as people making the finance to live in those areas, and things are going up. So it's getting tougher on those people, and they're not able to survive on whatever they was getting. And the New Bern itself need to push for at least the $15 raise or $15 income dollar per hour that they were talking about. And what good is that going to do? This is me speaking. What good is that going to do if you're going to jack everything up to eat up that $15 that the people may be getting? You're still getting what you put in, and they're still surviving, but still at the same level. So that should be some changes into that. But I think we just need to bring jobs here and give people an opportunity to work at those jobs. And Craven Community College has always been very helpful in helping train people for those jobs. And most time we used to train people for a job before the plant even got here.
Thank you. Appreciate your responses. Next question, starting with Mr. Prill. Many citizens throughout the city see a disproportionate allocation of city resources and advocacy for the downtown central business district. You think that's a fair and accurate perception?
Well, for many people, perception is reality, and it's difficult. It's a challenge to try to convince somebody that the perception may not be as accurate as they are representing. The downtown area, the business community, is certainly a critical part of New Bern. And without that, then the future of New Bern would be moving in a different direction. It's not unusual for a downtown business community to receive attention. And to the credit of the downtown business community, they made the decision a number of years ago to accept a tax that goes above and beyond what the normal property tax would be, levied, for them. And to a very great extent, it's that tax money that has gone towards making improvements in the downtown community. I think a lot of residents, that if they are not aware of that, or if at some point they were advised of that, it's something that is forgotten or not thought of. And that's part of the perception issue versus the reality. And I think it's important that the mayor and the board of aldermen constantly have to remind the community that the business community has stepped up where they needed to, which has resulted in significant improvements being made to the downtown area. The Five Points area is an area. The Five Points area is an area that is going to be developing in the future, and it might be a model for that to happen as well.
Thank you. Mr. White, same question. Many citizens throughout the city see a disproportionate allocation of city resources and advocacy for the downtown central business district. Is that a fair and accurate perception in your view?
To me, most people that live in the city of New Bern doesn't know how the downtown area works. They don't have an idea. So they think that everything, and I used to think that too, they think that everything is going downtown, but everything is not going downtown. There's a large portion going down there now. That's something that I disagree with to a point. The downtown committee down there, they have a budget. And I mean, I don't know what their regular budget is, but I know when I go through the financing check, I knew what the budget was, and the amount they allotted is supposed to be allotted every year up to that point. But in the paperwork it says until they pay back. If I get a check for $800,000, I get $800,000 of work done down there. But then at a certain point, until it comes back, then I'm eligible to do the other. That's the way I used to look at it. It doesn't seem to work that way down there. It's just like whatever needs to be done is done. And I understand that because you can't have real breakdowns or something to really shut down there. And they try to keep everything as modernized or up to date as they can. But it's supposed to be a historic area. And by it being historic, it doesn't look like it looked when I was coming up. And if we're going to have a New Bern, and I've said it time and time again, we can have a New Bern, let that be the original old New Bern. And if they were moving out a little further, we have, like Winston-Salem, we have a new Bern, okay? And it's West New Bern, and we got New Bern. So they need to get that together, because one is going to grow, one going to outgrow the other. The downtown area the 4 blocks, the blocks that they have, that's not going to grow anymore.
Right. And we're going to have to wrap up your comments on this question, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The next question, and I believe we're starting with
I didn't answer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Because it's my favorite topic.
Keep me in, guys.
It is my favorite. Everybody knows it's my favorite.
Many citizens throughout the city see a disproportionate, thank you.
You're welcome. No problem.
Disproportionate allocation of city resources and advocacy for the downtown central business district. Is that a fair and accurate perception?
Well, it is fair and accurate because I have been fighting that for 20 years. But, you know, I have to give it to the early beginnings of Swiss Fair. And it was around the early 80s that they asked the property owners. And I want to make sure that people understand it's the property owners that pay it, not the business owners, but the property owners. And they decided to collect this tax so that they could have funds to use to improve the infrastructure and other needs of the downtown. And it has worked over the years because what has happened, the values of the property have increased throughout the years, which has afforded us more funds to do more projects. Now, with that being said, you know, I have tried to work through the chamber, the Glen Burnie corridor, the James City corridor, to try to organize that group to see if we could get an MSD. The 5 points we tried to see if we could get an MSD there where the property owners would pay, had no takers. And of course, the tax is to enact it has to be voluntary. You have to have a majority of the property owners agree to it. And we could never do that. So we are chastised for spending a lot of money in the downtown, but it is money that has been paid for by taxpayers who agreed to do this so we could have the improvements in downtown, sidewalks, streets, lighting. And many years ago, Mr. Hartman, who was the city manager, he was very adept at financing things. So he found out how we could take a small amount of money, borrow a large amount, and take the small amount and make payments throughout the years. So for the past, 35 to almost 40 years, we have borrowed large sums of money and paid the debt service back through this tax. And now we're, it's been good. There's money in the bank, I have to say, and we will continue to fund projects. And the news is we can only spend it by law within the district boundaries. So I think it's an important tool, and I'm very glad that we have it.
Thank you. We are about 13 minutes into an hour, so we have a couple more questions, and then we'll see what your pleasure is. If we need to go over time, or if there's an ability for each of you to stay a few more minutes. The next question, and keep me honest, I believe starts with Mr. White. If a citizen calls you to complain, Mr. White, yeah. If a citizen calls you to complain about city services, how will you handle the call?
That's very easy. Yeah. It's very easy. I would talk to that citizen while that person is talking with me. I would tell that person who I'm going to contact, and I will also tell that person I will get back with them. I would really contact my city manager. I don't try to solve those issues on my own. The person would tell me what the problem entails, and then I would tell the city manager, and the city manager should, and I know he will have somebody who can deal with that, and he'll take and sign. He'll talk to that supervisor, and that supervisor will sign somebody to go out there and look at it or do what they can with it. And that, as far as I'm concerned, that leaves me clear. I'll call the person back and check and find out that they come out there and they say, yeah, if they have any other complaints, I'll listen to them, and then I just report it back till everything is ironed out.
Thank you. Ms. Bengel, if a citizen calls you to complain about city services, how will you handle the call?
Pretty much the same response. I always try to listen politely and ask the complaining citizen to not yell at me because I'm here to help them, because I know they're very upset about whatever the problem is, especially the calls that I get at 5:30 in the morning. But I would listen to them. thank them for calling me and let them know that I'm going to contact the city manager or a city staff person to try to resolve the problem. In a lot of cases, I ask that the city staff person call them back with the resolution, because I found in my experience that as the go-between, I might not say exactly the right thing the staff is telling me back to the citizen, and sometimes mistakes are made. So I try to do that, but in some cases, I do try to follow up with the citizen to say, I'm sorry you've had this problem. Did somebody call you? And I'm going to be very honest and admit, sometimes city staff doesn't call. So I would hope that the citizen would call back and say, look, I didn't hear from anybody. I still have my problem. Try to help me solve it. So I've done that. Same thing if I got an email. If I received a complaint via email, I usually forward that email to staff, copying the citizen to see that I have sent it and what the response is, so that the staff member could respond to all.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. Prill. If a citizen calls you to complain about city services, how will you handle the call?
Yeah, certainly, I agree with what Sabrina and Mr. White have outlined. I mean, those are the proper procedures. I think this is an area where certainly my background would come into play, very, very much so, given that for 30 years I was on the receiving end of residents' complaints and concerns, and had the responsibility to address those as best I could. But as an alderman, certainly, first step would be to, talk to the citizen to make sure that I fully understood what their concern was. Again, based on my background in local government, I'd probably try to explain to them what the procedure was going to be, how it would be handled, just so they had a background on that. Take that complaint, pass it on to the city manager, and ask that whatever staff, whatever department, whatever individual it might be end up with, to make sure that I'm copied in on any communications that take place with the resident, as well as any proposed corrective action that might be taken. Because I'd want to have the ability to monitor that and make sure that some resolution. I mean, if not everything can be resolved, and sometimes the answer has to be no, but it's important that if the answer is a no, or we might not be able to address the full concern, but might be able to do something, that it's explained to the resident to make sure that they understand why the action being taken is being taken. And that way, that allows me to track it and ultimately then get back to the resident to just discuss whether or not they were satisfied, and again, further kind of help explain why the end result is what it was. And it may not have fully satisfied their concern, but hopefully something was done.
Thank you. We are getting close to the 60-minute mark. We do have several other questions. I'd like to ask the three candidates, are you able to go over the hour time that you set aside for this interview or not? And we will respect your wishes if anyone is not able to do that.
I can continue on for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good for 5:30 is my drop dead though.
Okay, gotcha. Mr. White?
I'm good.
Okay, all right, we'll go. 6 aldermen. Okay, now where am I on? I'm starting what? I believe this question starts with Mr. Prill. 6 aldermen and the mayor comprise the Board of Aldermen. Do you believe your job as an alderman is to fight only for your ward, or to be a member of a board that makes policy decisions for the entire city of New Bern?
Well, it's both. It's extremely difficult to try to definitively say that it's one or the other. It's a combination of both of those. Obviously, the mayor and board of aldermen, to be an effective group, they need to find the way and means to come together as a functioning decision-making body, and acknowledge that there is not going to be agreement on every issue amongst all members of the board, and that's okay. Everybody has, a different way of looking at things, different opinions, and it's okay to disagree. The important thing is that decisions get made in a timely manner, and that actions be taken, and you just continue moving forward. So ensuring that the newly constituted mayor and board, and there is going to be some change, and we'll know what that is in the near future. It's important that that group of individuals work very hard to become a productive decision-making body, for the city.
Mr. White, same question. 6 aldermen and the mayor comprise the Board of Aldermen. Do you believe your job as an alderman is to fight only for your ward, or to be a member of a board that makes policy for the entire city of New Bern?
Well, you got to be an alderman that's going to help make policy for the entire city of New Bern. But if you're fighting for your ward and they have sent you down there to fight for them, you need to at least tell them that you're fighting for them and let them know the issues that's dealing on the other hand. Basically, if it's for the city, then and it's going to benefit the city, you need to stick with the city to make sure it get done, and then not kill the issue that whoever ward it is talking about. Not kill that issue. You need to go ahead and get what's first, and the entire city is first. But we're not to allow a ward to totally run down, not get any assistance or something. You can compromise a little bit and help them a little bit.
Thank you. Ms. Bengal, same question. 6 aldermen and the mayor comprise the Board of Aldermen. Do you believe your job as an alderman is to fight only for your ward, or to be a member of a board that makes policy for the entire city of New Bern?
I believe it's both. Once a decision is made, it is for the city of New Bern. So at the end of the day, you cannot do anything in your ward by yourself. You need 3 others. The majority of the board is 4. You must have that. And nobody would get anything done if we didn't try to fight for our wards. We are the leader in that issue. And so when we bring an issue forward, if we have to make a policy change that impacts our ward or will be helpful to our ward, then we have to be the leader and get it out there. So yes, we do fight for our wards. We do fight to get things on an agenda that are important to the citizens of our ward. But at the end of the day, it takes the rest of the city, 3 other ones, including yourself, to help that ward. I had an instance in Ghent where the citizens of Ghent wanted a road closed or restricted access. They came, I stood by them, I stood with them, but I could not get the majority vote on the board. And again, I think that's good governance. We went in there with the best of intent. We worked together. And we left the dais, saying, okay, we argued the point. I didn't win it, but our citizens were heard. I still would like to get it changed, but without a consensus on the board, it's hard to do that. But I think it's each alderman's job to bring forward the position of their ward and how it impacts the city as a whole. So my answer to the question is both sides.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. White. Everybody had a chance on that one, yes. The state of North Carolina municipal government.
Actually, can I say something real quick? Can you ask Alderman Bengel?
Yes.
Just to make sure we're in order.
Okay.
I don't want to. I want to make sure we're all fair here. So, okay. See ya.
Okay. Am I out of order?
Maybe so. I lost track.
Alderman Bengal. I know it's really hard to keep track. I'm trying to keep track. So Alderman Bengal. And
Alderman Bengal. Thank you for keeping me. It's not my forte. Okay. We'll start with Alderman Bengal. The The state of North Carolina municipal government was designed to have a strong city manager system with the city manager running the city, not the alderman or the board. The past two city managers were offered jobs by the Board of Aldermen without advertising nationally or even statewide. National for management positions of that level, the standard practice is to recruit nationally. Negotiations took place, and then the board voted on the appointments in open session. Many citizens in our town have viewed these appointments as lacking truth and honesty, transparency, a process which failed to bring multiple candidates who might have wanted this job to be considered for the position. Do you agree with the processes that were followed or disagree with them?
So one correction, let me start out. Mr. Stevens was hired via a process. There was an actual citizens committee that was appointed. It was a national search. They brought in candidates from several different areas and ended up choosing Mr. Stevens, who was local. So that was a shirt. I was not involved with that. I was involved with the one with Mr. Epperson. Again, that was a national search brought in. I believe, in all honesty, the reason we did not have it this time and did not do the quote unquote national search is the uncertainty of everything. COVID, we were in the midst of COVID, unsure how that process was going to play out. We were also unfortunately caught between, are we having elections or not? That was very stressful to us as a board. Are we going to have elections? Because immediately as when Mr. Stevens left and we appointed Mr. Hughes as the interim, we kind of felt like, okay, this is it. We're not going to do a search. We're not doing anything until the new board comes on. We should let a new board, because we were almost to the end of our term. Then we find out after the fact that our term is going to go longer, and it's going to go longer. I mean, we've been here much longer than we thought. So I believe that we felt in the best interest of the city right now to have good leadership. We were very confident in Foster's ability. He did an excellent job, and the majority of the board felt comfortable that he could do this job. He would lead our city, and we chose him. At any time, the Board of Aldermen can fire and let go and let a manager go. So if this next board comes in and feels they need a better process, they certainly can do that. But I will tell you that I'm very comfortable in my choice. I think he was an excellent choice. And in the midst of everything we were dealing with, I think we did a great job. Thank you.
And again, I just want to interject for clarity. This is in no way a reflection of the individuals in those positions. This is simply a question
about
the process.
So. Yes, no, I totally understand that. Thank you.
Process. Mr. Prill, the state of North Carolina municipal government was designed for strong city manager system with strong city managers running the city, not elected officials. Our current city manager was offered a job without the board advertising locally, nationally, or even at a statewide level, which is standard practice for upper level management positions generally. Negotiations took place and then the board voted on the appointment in open session. Many citizens in our town have viewed the appointment as lacking transparency and a process which failed. Do you agree or disagree with the processes that have occurred in this regard?
I have a serious concern about the methodology that the city has used in its recruitment and hiring process, not just for the city manager position, but you can take it down to other very key management positions within the city, and that includes the assistant city manager as well as department heads. Just from the short time, 6-7 years that I have been a resident of New Bern, I've just observed the process that's taken place for these key management positions, and it just comes across as being somewhat haphazard. And from my background, being in local government, for 3 decades, it's important that you have kind of best practices, processes in place, especially when you are recruiting and trying to staff a city organization with the very best people that you can find. And in some cases, the staff or the process has, I think, very appropriate. There have been national searches. In other cases, that has not taken place. And I think it's important, and one of the goals that I would like to achieve if elected would be to have a thorough review done of the city's recruitment and hiring process for key management positions to ensure that best practices are being followed.
Thank you. Same question to Mr. White. The state of North Carolina municipal government was designed and is designed to have a strong city manager system, with the city manager running the city, not elected officials. Our current city manager was offered a job without the board advertising locally, nationally, or at a statewide level, which is typical standard practice in most municipalities. Many citizens in our town have viewed these appointments as lacking transparency and a process which failed to bring in an inclusive list of candidates across the nation to be considered. Do you agree with the process or disagree with the process which was followed?
I agree with the state municipal government. When I first came into office, we had to hire five heads. We had to deal with a chief police, finance. No, we had to deal with finance, city manager, whole lot of things we had to do. And we picked a gentleman by the name of Mr. Watt. And Mr. Watt was an older person, but he knew a lot about government. He came from that place. He set us up so that we would have to go. It was like a national search, and those people came. It was start off with a whole lot, but we mowed it on down till it got to be about 6. And when it got to be about 6, everybody that we had talked to were highly qualified. I mean, you ask the questions and they will give you an answer just like that. No problem. Anything you wanted to do, they know what you was talking about. Well, I feel that, and we did all 5 of those people basically the same way. We got good people in place of them, and there wasn't any. I didn't hear anybody talking back about it or arguing about it. But I feel if you're going to do something, keep the proper channels and go through it and do what you had to do. And when it came to Mark, it was just a different thing because Mr. Everson, he stepped out. And when he stepped out, that left another avenue. And at that time, Mark was one of the people that was just there. And then during the period of time, we had started deteriorating a little bit, but we were still getting things done. The board was still pretty good, pretty strong, and that's what you need. You need somebody there that's really want to follow the procedures and stay on those guidelines. And I was figuring this time here that we were going to the state municipal people to even look for another city manager, but it takes a little time.
Appreciate your comments. We're going to now move to the last and closing remarks from the candidates. Each of you will have 4 minutes to let the citizens of New Bern know why they should vote for you and why you should be their next alderman. Mr. White, we will start with you. You have 4 minutes to tell the public why they should vote for you.
I think and feel that you should vote for me because I'm going to follow the guidelines, and I think I'm a great candidate for that. the city of New Bern has a way of looking over things until the bottom fall out, and the bottom doesn't fall right out with them. It's nobody brings it up. Nobody's talk about it. Nobody come down there and complain about it. We are people that complain about things that might be going in our area, but we don't complain as some of the older people used to do that used to come down there. We don't complain about how we do things, who we hire. They don't say anything, some of them, until they get too far down the line. The community has a right to keep the aldermen on their toes. You have the right to come down there. If you disagree with something, you have the right to come down there and do it right, and say why you disagree with it, and talk it out. And when you're talking it out, a lot of people may be listening, and some of the other people are going to realize, hey, that person may be talking the right thing. And so you just need to do it, because if you don't, we're gonna wind up in a sham. And a sham means that we trust people that sometimes we shouldn't trust. And it's not about us. You're still supposed to be working for the people. So that's all I can say. Nothing else I can add to it. Just I don't. I even complained one time we was hiring people, and I complained about the way we did a certain thing. And somebody knows what I'm talking about too. And it was wrong, but you only one vote. You only one vote. You either vote for it or against it. Why would I vote for a person that doesn't have any of the capabilities or the knowledge that somebody that I've heard talk, and they seem to be a genius in it, and they've done it over 20 some years or 25 years. And I'm going to put a person there who haven't never been there. You get in the car, you get behind somebody, you want to get behind somebody that can drive. You don't want to drive with a person that's been driving more than 6 weeks or 6 months. Just you got to do what you got to do.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Ms. Bengal, you have 4 minutes. Oh, Mr. Prill? Okay, Mr. Prill. You have 4 minutes to let the citizens of New Bern know why you should be the next alderman in the first ward.
Yes, and thank you. And certainly, I'm just asking for the residents of Ward 1 to give consideration to myself, primarily based on my background, the 30 years that I have spent in service, in the public service, working in local management, and just the knowledge and the experience of local government, of what local government is about, how it should be run. I think it's important that, and again, I respect Sabrina. I respect Mr. White. The voters have, I think, a very interesting choice to make. You have Mr. White as a former member of the Board of Aldermen, and certainly a commitment to the community. Sabrina, a current member of the board, as well as serving previously. Again, a very strong commitment to the community. I'd like to think that the voters would recognize that if they would like to see change happen on the Board of Aldermen, and maybe just a different direction for the city to be moving in, that they would give consideration to myself. I would bring, I think, a very strong professional approach in working with the members of the Board of Aldermen. I understand the need for that group of decision makers to be able to work together as effectively as possible in conducting the business of the community. And I think I have the ability to do that. And I would certainly ask the voters to give that their consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bengal, you have 4 minutes to let the citizens of Ward 1 know why you should continue to be the alderman of their ward.
Thank you so much. And I do want to thank you and Wendy for allowing us this opportunity to meet the voters and to speak to them. I believe I am the best choice because I bring that level of experience, leadership to the table. Ward 1 is the most difficult ward in all of the city. It's because of its diversity, because of its needs, its economic impact on the rest of the city. And it requires someone that has the level of experience to know how to navigate through the different communities, know who the different communities are, and also to have the relationships with the different organizations that we have to partner with on a regular basis to get the job done within the city. I think that one of the things I bring to the table is the network of people that I've known of and worked with in the many years, the organizations I've worked with. I believe that's important. The years that I was out of office, that level of experience and leadership was not there. And Ward 1 suffered for it. And I heard that constantly. I am ready to go to work on day one. There's no downtime. There's no lag. I'm ready to go to work. And I think the citizens of Ward 1 deserve that. And that's why I deserve to be reelected. I am committed. I am capable. And I have the passion, the desire, and the knowledge to lead this ward for another 4 years. I would like the opportunity to serve again. I believe hopefully we can stay out of COVID and we can stay out of a flood and I can get some real serious work done and continue to do the good things I've had. But I respectfully ask the citizens who are viewing this and the citizens of Ward 1 to cast your vote for me. And I believe that in return, you will get committed, capable, and very passionate leadership from me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ward 1 is extraordinarily lucky to have 3 such great candidates working to represent them. I'd like to thank New Bern Now, Managing Editor Wendy Card for providing this opportunity to the citizens of New Bern to hear more about what candidates think. Early voting has started. Our democracy works when everyone votes. So go to the polls and vote.
Yes, and I would just like to say thank you, Alderman Bengel, Mr. Prill, and Mr. White, all in alphabetical order, and Kathy Adolph for moderating this. It's so important that everyone gets a chance to know each one of you, and thank you for your time. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend and a great day.
Thank you.
And if people are watching, if you need to connect with the alderman, do you want to just give your website real quick or phone number or anything?
Sure, I'll start really quickly. You can send me a message at my website is votesabrina.com. My email is votesabrina2022@gmail.com. Or you certainly can call me at 252-514-5734. Thank you.
People can certainly reach out to me on Facebook, on the campaign website page, www.rickprill22.com. I've got a couple of different Gmail accounts that can be easily found on the website, as well as the home phone number, or just reach out to me, stop by the house, knock on the door. If I'm home, I'll certainly take the time to discuss any concern or answer any questions that people might have.
And Mr. White, how can people get in touch with you?
I would say you can call me at 252-638-8260. That's my line number. And on email is KASON6@outlook.com.
All right. Well, thank you.
I'll respond.
I'm sorry.
And I will respond.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you on the streets. Ciao.